Alrighty, everybody, this is Taylor McLean with Real Broker and Tina Swanger with Remax Properties and leader of the Peak Success team. And this is the Team TNT Radio Podcast. Let's get into today's episode.
We've got some real exciting statistics today. Lots of stuff happening by the end of the year. How can you take advantage of this? Well, let's talk about it. What do you think, Taylor?
Yeah, I was just reading online. There's so many articles right now about the housing market and the presidential election. And I really was deep diving into a lot of these numbers. And I just saw this one article that was actually talking about how 60% of prospective buyers are taking the election into account. And also, more dramatically, 38% of home buyers are actually pausing their search until after Election Day.
So what do you think that does as a home buyer, as an opportunity in this market?
Yeah, I think honestly, what a lot of home buyers may not think about right now is, well, everyone may be hesitant and kind of waiting just to see what happens. You could actually take advantage of that opportunity and go in and find a deal in your market.
So here's a couple of things you can take advantage of. The lower interest rates right now, they're sitting and steady at below 6%. You can even get it less if you have the seller buy down, and we can help you strategize that. There's less competition on the market because everybody's waiting until after the election. There's still a lot of houses on the market and a lot of motivated sellers. Otherwise, they wouldn't be selling this time of year. And there's a lot to choose from. If you're a home buyer, right now is a perfect storm. You can take advantage of all of these things before the election, before everybody gets excited, before everybody jumps into the market and goes, okay, the coast is clear, the election's over. Now let's go buy a house. But by then it's going to be too late. So you need somebody who's going to help you strategize. You need somebody who's going to help get creative, to understand that seller's motivation, have connections with that other listing agent, and make sure that you know the history, the background, the permits, the conditions, anything that you need to know to get you the best deal so that you can make an informed choice for you and your family and your legacy. This is all about the American dream. This is all about achieving a goal. And if your goal is buying a house, you need to do it sooner than later. Trust me, I've bought a lot of houses and I have wished I have bought a lot more because I waited. I hesitated. He who hesitates loses.
That's so true. And honestly, I'm really nervous that after this election, no matter who wins, the home prices may rise because year after year, we are seeing typically there is an increase in home value year after year. That's a pretty standard pattern. But the issue is when the election passes, it's possible that everyone is going to jump into the market, demand is going to rise, which means home prices are going to rise. So that's my concern as far as predictions for next year and leading up to the springtime. And honestly, home buyers, if you think that the interest rates are a huge concern right now, home prices are going to be your next concern.
Absolutely. And for every quarter of a point, it changes your monthly payment depending on the price point, anywhere from $50 to $300 a month for every 0.25% of the interest rate. So from 6% to 6.25, huge difference. And that's for the life of the loan for the entire 30 years, unless you refinance. But remember, there's always a cost to refinance as well, unless you do a streamline refinance. But if you do a streamline refinance, part of that refinance fee is built into the rate. So, if you need to know more, you need to know more. But if you need to know more, I have the answers. Taylor has the answers. We can help navigate this particular market right now. And it's critical that you have guidance. It's critical that you have a trusted professional. Ask the questions about a person's expertise and willingness to go above and beyond to make those phone calls and do that research and make sure that you have all of the information you need to make a good decision and make the right choice for you and your family.
Yeah.
Huge.
That's super important, especially with just knowing that you can count on your realtor to have
Mhm.
the connections to the professionals like lenders and things like that who can actually prepare you for this huge decision. Because if you're not surrounded by an uplifting, positive, informed group of professionals navigating through this market, you may not be set up for success, unfortunately, and you may not be able to get the best interest rate that you can, or you may not know about this loan program or these grants or just certain resources that are out there and available right now. It's really important for you to be informed about all the options so that way you can make the best decision for yourself. And right now is the best time to do it when we're going into the winter, into the cold seasons where the sellers, I mean, they're motivated to sell, but there may be less demand during that time. And so you may be able to get a better deal as well.
There's assumables out there too. You don't have to be a veteran to assume a VA mortgage in some cases. Not all of the assumables are non-veteran assumables, but there are some out there. I mean, you can still tag on to a 3-4% interest rate on a house with a down payment. And if you've got enough money for a significant down payment, you need to give us a call because there's still some sellers out there who really need to sell and they're willing to let go of that interest rate or their eligibility for VA financing. I don't know if you guys also know there is reconstruction, rehabilitation loans out there that can be rolled into these mortgages. There's first-time homebuyer programs. And don't let that be confused with some of these election promises, first-time homebuyer programs, because some of them have a lot of red flags and strings attached. So be very, very careful and understand what you're looking at.
Definitely something that I've heard recently is there's a difference between as far as the first time homebuyer programs, there are some silent second programs, which just means there's a second mortgage on the property where you owe it. And there's others where if you live in the property for a certain amount of time, you may not need to pay that back. But it really, really depends on the program. So you need to understand the differences and you need to know what you qualify for and fully understand what you're signing before you sign it with any sort of lender. And honestly, finding a lender is one of the most important things because we're talking about your monthly payment, your finances, your debts. These are things that are very important, and it's really essential that you are constantly speaking with your lender as far as understanding what's happening. So that way you know what fees are involved, what the process looks like. And honestly, if a lender is only doing hard credit pulls, that's a red flag because most lenders that know what they're doing, they'll only do a soft credit pull.
And if
So
you've got marginal credit right around that 700 price range, don't be doing hard pulls because it's going to hurt you. It'll hurt your
yeah.
interest rate. You'll pay more for your money if your interest rate is or your credit score is lower. You definitely want to be very careful. There's another thing on these first time homebuyer programs. Sometimes there's prepayment penalties too. So if you're only in the house for a short period of time, less than 5 years, there could be a recapture on that or a tax that you have to pay or an income adjustment that you have to pay. So there's a lot of different programs out there, but just because it sounds good on the surface doesn't mean it always is. Sometimes there's red flags and strings attached. So be very careful. But you got to have somebody that you trust. And this is not just the real estate agent. This is the lender, the inspector, the insurance company, all of them, all the professionals you need to have protecting you. The sellers, they're looking out for their interest, of course, and there's wonderful sellers out there and wonderful other agents out there. But as a buyer, you need an advocate. You may have bought several houses before, but the real estate game has changed. The market has changed. And you need somebody who is competent and capable to explain.
Absolutely. I mean, just with the relationship between a client and a realtor, that whole interaction, that whole relationship has changed as far as the formalities, the contracts, the transparency.
Yes.
It's extremely important to know these changes and for your realtor to explain these new laws, these new contracts that have been put into place. There needs to be an actual conversation first before even jumping into this. I mean, there really needs to be planning and mutual understanding of expectations as well with everything that's happening. It's really, really confusing. And it's definitely not something that you want to just jump into, especially with sellers on the selling side. I mean, when it comes to the listing contract and things like that, there's a lot of language in there that maybe some people just it's really hard to grasp and understand, but having someone that takes it through line by line with you if necessary, and they're able to explain how it works and what your options are and negotiate, it's super important rather than just having you sign on the line. I mean, there needs to be a dialogue there.
And
Mhm.
preparing your house to show and make it look better than every other house out there is really critical because the buyers have a bit of an advantage right now. It's shifted a little bit from a seller's market to a buyer's market. It's all kind of hyper local. It may be a little different in your subdivision or in your market because of supply and demand. But right now, the buyers have a little bit more leverage. And just be aware of that. Where 6 months ago you could have got XYZ, now you've got to be a little more thoughtful, methodical, showcase your home a little bit differently, market it differently, make sure their availability for showings and price it right from the beginning. Do not go, well, let's try this. Death sentence. Don't do that. That's a bad idea. I have a lot of experience in that recently where writing the market down and seeing listings that have been on the market for a very long time. That's not a good idea and it's not a good position for you as a seller to be in.
And speaking of, we were just touching on assumable loans, and oh my gosh, I could not believe just a couple of months ago, probably like maybe 2 months ago, I saw the most insane assumable loan deal. I mean, literally, the gap that you just had to pay is literally $9,000,
Oof.
and the interest on that was like 3.5. It
Oh my
was
God.
it was gone. Literally, it was listed like right before the weekend and it was gone immediately. I mean, deals like that, because some people may get the wrong idea about assumable loans where they only think there's maybe like $100,000 gap that they have to pay or like $60,000. But honestly, like there's a lot of little hidden gems there on the market. And that one was down
Got to
by
be
Fort
prepared,
Carson.
ready.
Yes, yeah, because you need to have someone who's looking at the deals, looking at the gems that are there and informing you like, "Hey, this just hit the market and I wanted to make sure you saw it immediately. Like, what do you think?" Because this one, it was right by Fort Carson and that's such a high demand area with the military, and yeah, it was gone.
And
I
if
was
you
like,
are military and you have VA eligibility, you are golden. You are golden. Look for those little gems. You know,
yes.
and we have the ability to search just specifically on assumables, VA assumables with eligibility premier, and there's a lot of them out there. All the VA loans are assumables, all of them. And if you have VA eligibility and you want to get a low interest rate that they had from a year or two ago, yeah, I would totally jump on.
Yeah. They're super cool. It's
You have
really
to be owner
cool.
occupied. You can't be an investor though.
We're talking about monthly payment affordability and how there's like a housing affordability crisis. Literally, assumable loans. This is how to combat the interest rate hesitations, mortgage payment. It's a huge solution that can help people actually get into a home with a monthly payment that they can afford and an interest rate that they're very happy with that's non-existent right now.
Amen, sister.
Yeah. Seriously, definitely worth it. And yeah, and a lot of people don't really know what it is, I feel like, because one of my
There's title
clients,
companies in town that specialize.
yeah,
And so it takes all the guesswork out. That's all they do. As a buyer, you just do what you're told and follow the process and fill out the paperwork. And most assumables you can't close in 30 days. It's like 45 to 90 days is
Yeah.
kind of what your window of up. So you do have to have a little flexibility on the closing. But even the Veterans Administration, I don't know if you knew this or not, but there is a requirement from the Veterans Administration that is requiring the banks who don't necessarily want to have somebody assume that low interest rate, requiring them to honor it and speed up the process.
Wow. I love that.
And if they don't, then we send them the article and contact them with VA. And so
That's how to lower your stress levels, get into the market, look into assumable loans. It's something that not a lot of people know about, something that not a lot of realtors really explain, and maybe something that's just mentioned in
it's
passing,
harder
but
work for realtors to do. That's why you're not going to hear a lot about it.
yeah, it's really not that bad. I mean, it's really just explaining and being transparent with the client. That's a freaking steal. Like, I would totally help anyone who wanted to do an assumable loan. I mean, it's literally a steal because essentially for those who don't really know what it is, so if a home was listed for 400,000 and the mortgage loan balance is like 390, so then there's a $10,000 gap essentially. And so the buyer would have to pay that gap to assume the loan. There's like your normal down payment, closing costs, or whatnot. But something that is also really important is your realtor should be partnering with an assumable loan company that specializes in this process and they're helping kind of facilitate these conversations. So that way we're talking to the mortgage people and saying, hey, can we assume this loan? Okay, cool. And with all the formalities that that involves. But that's also something else is you can't just assume it. You have to get permission to do that.
You have to qualify.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So,
But, if you get with a real estate agent that knows what they're doing, they know how to do it and is willing to do it, then I would do it.
yeah.
I mean, if I were in a buyer position right now, you have to be owner occupied, cannot be an investor. That's a huge point. There's investors out there that want to try to take advantage of this, and God bless them, but it is only an owner occupied opportunity for VA anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, for
I
sure.
that I
Yeah.
know of, at least that I know of.
I'm honestly really excited that we were just talking about assumable loans because that really is a huge solution to any sort of hesitancy on the buying side, where I feel like a lot of buyers are very hesitant, just very nervous and maybe frustrated that they can't afford a house in their situation. And I really want to speak encouragement into y'all because there's so many options that you may just haven't thought of or you just don't know. And that's why it's really important to talk to
Doesn't cost
somebody.
anything to call us. Doesn't cost
Yes.
anything. And we're not going to stalk you. We're not
Right.
we're not going to keep bugging you. It doesn't make sense. We can't force somebody to buy a house if they don't want to or they don't feel it's in their best interest. And it may
Yeah.
not be. Everybody's different. It may not be a good time. Maybe you need to save up some more money. Maybe you don't qualify for an assumable. Maybe you need to help clean up the credit. By the way, we can help you with that too.
Yeah, that's so true. Reaching out sooner rather than later is the best thing to do because even if you're a seller and you may be thinking of selling next year and you're like, oh, I'll just look into it next year, like maybe in next May, I'll, think about it more seriously. Okay, but you're already almost halfway into next year and it takes time to sell a house. I mean, it's not just like instant. It takes some effort and some planning and some setup and just consulting with a realtor in advance. I mean, you may catch issues that you didn't know about. Maybe there's some sort of collections account that comes up on your credit where, oh, you're like, oh, I didn't realize I didn't pay this bill, or oh, I didn't know my credit was this, or just you need to consult with people, professionals who are here to support you and guide you through this process as far as helping your credit improve prior to wanting to buy, because you may think you're ready to buy but then your credit's pulled and then they're like, oh, you actually need to maybe pay this credit card off or pay off the T-Mobile account, things like that.
Some lenders will let you pay some of your credit cards off during the closing too. Help get the debt to income ratio shifted a little bit. That's really gold.
There's so many options, so many ways to help maybe resolve some of these issues that you may have been wrestling with in the back of your mind. And you're like, I have no idea what to do about resolving this problem. Maybe there's a plumbing issue in your house, or maybe there's just some little cosmetic things that need to be done before you sell. And just asking for help is the best first step in this, is just consulting with someone who can actually help resolve these problems for you, because this isn't something that you're doing by yourself. I mean, this isn't something you're expected to just know everything about. That's why we're here.
If you've been listening to real estate programs and you're not a real estate agent, you probably hear some of this stuff over and over again, but you really do need to trust someone. That's the most important thing. You need to trust your advisors. Whatever you do, trust your advisors. As long as it's somebody you trust, who are giving you good advice, not just to sell, not just to buy, but to give you good advice for your future.
Thank you so much for everyone who is listening to this episode today. We really appreciate you listening to the third and final episode in our housing market versus presidential election mini season. So thank you so much for going on this journey with us. It's been a couple weeks in the making, and we really hope that you like this new setup, this new mini season schedule. So if you are enjoying this and you want to see more mini seasons, we would love to hear your feedback. And we're thinking of quite a few more ideas for our next upcoming episodes and mini seasons, with also some bonus episodes thrown in there with some amazing interviews that we're going to be putting out there. So we're just really excited to share this and hope that it helps a couple people. And don't forget to vote. Thank you.